When I got to the office on Monday, Dan said, "Do you want to spend a couple days in Florida? Elliot Rogers seems to need some propping up, and that's with all the turmoil in the Dow Jones Index over the past couple months." Since Dan and I owned our firm, we usually didn't travel to visit clients anymore, which is what young, energetic subordinates are for. But Elliot Rogers and his wife had been with us for more than 15 years and had about $100 million invested, so they were getting special attention. I don't mind. In fact, it's a pretty good time. Both kids are in college now, and Carrie is off to visit a friend in Nashville for a week. So of course I'm going to go comfort him. A plus for me was seeing my Uncle Tony. Now almost 80, he lived right on a scenic river an hour north of Miami, and he was a charismatic personality in spite of his age. I went home and packed my suitcase for a couple days and headed to the airport. At 3:30, we sat with Tony on the balcony of his apartment, drinking Sam Adams and listening to the same old stories I'd loved since I was a kid. Every time a boat passed, he would stop talking and pick up his binoculars. "Are you going to finish this story or not, Tony? So the bartender's going to score on you." He smirked, not taking the binoculars from his eyes. "Wait a minute, young man. A man my age doesn't see that many bare breasts." He handed me the binoculars, and to my amazement, I saw 3 teenage girls and a guy waving from a small sailboat. The girls were all smiling and topless. Tony took the binoculars back. "See what I mean?" He hummed contentedly. We shared family stories and managed a couple more beers before I started thinking about dinner. A couple of steaks at Tony's favorite joint around the corner. He picked up the binoculars again, looked at the pale blue motorboat, focused intently, and just stared. Then he said, "Holy shit," and handed me the binoculars. It was a vessel about 35 feet long called My Blue Angel, floating gently downstream. There was a stocky, short-haired guy about 30 or so lying on his back on cushions in the cockpit, and a beautiful brunette, obviously somewhat older, was having it, bouncing vigorously. She had a large tattoo of a Chinese character on her right shoulder. You may ask why I bothered to notice the name of the boat, or the tattoo on the naked woman. Easy enough to explain. It was my wife, Carrie. Without saying a word, I handed the binoculars back to my uncle and listened to his cursory commentary until the couple was out of sight around the corner. When they disappeared, he put the glasses down and said, "Man, was that a sight to behold? I see that couple on that boat from time to time, Jack, but I'm telling you, that lady was hot. If I was 20 years younger—" "More like 50, I'd say," I replied, smiling at him. I was very upset, but I wasn't going to talk to Tony about it. We went out for steaks, after which I dragged Tony home and he fell asleep. At 9:30, I was in my hotel room. I had a lot to think about. You might think I was wiped out, but I wasn't. Carrie and I had been married for about 12 years. She was a great stepmother to my 2 children. My first wife was killed in a railroad accident, and a very good wife to me. I loved and appreciated her, and I knew she loved me. Yet somehow I wasn't so shocked that she wasn't sleeping with me. Carrie had always been impulsive. She couldn't do one thing for too long. She'd had 5 different jobs during our marriage, had several hobbies, from knitting to country dancing to horseback riding, and just never wanted to sit still. Carrie and I had a sex life that I enjoyed. She was certainly as interested in sex as I was. Sometimes we had gentle, even routine sex like older and married people, but other times she had me down to my livers. In fact, I figured one of her favorite positions for hardcore sex was on top of me, just like she was riding that guy on the boat. Carrie had tried several times to get me to fuck her in public. We tried the park bench and the back seat of my car a couple times, but I drew the line too far. I just really didn't want to see my name in the papers. To put it bluntly, I wasn't crushed. I was angry and hurt, but I didn't expect my marriage to necessarily fall apart because of it. I didn't think Carrie meant to humiliate me. She didn't know where Uncle Tony lived, and she certainly had no idea that I would be looking at the river that day. But 2 things were perfectly clear to me. I was going to find out a lot more about what was going on, and I was going to sleep with Stephanie Prince. Heck, I called Marjorie Bales in Nashville, where Carrie was supposedly spending the week. She seemed surprised to hear from me, and a little wary. "Sorry to bother you, Marjorie, but Carrie's cell phone doesn't seem to be working, and I can't get through. Would you mind inviting her in for a moment?" Oh, I'm sorry, Jack. She's in the shower. Can I have her call you back? We finished talking on the phone, and I smiled to myself. As I expected, Marjorie had her old friends back. I wondered how many of Carrie's previous trips to Nashville had actually been vacations with one buddy or another. Carrie called me on my cell phone about 45 minutes later. A pretty long shower. And we had a friendly chat. I told her I was on my way to visit a client, but didn't mention where I was. Before we hung up, she said she loved me and missed me and would see me on Saturday. The thing is, I believed her. She loved me. I didn't think it was a matter of trying to one-up or thwart me. I assumed my impulsive wife was just not cut out for monogamy. The morning after my meeting with Elliot Rogers, I spent half an hour with Thomas Giardino, a private investigator. I told him all about the guy with the short haircut and the yacht. My Blue Angel, let him hand him a picture of my wife, and left him a sizable check. No need to intrude, and I don't need compromising photos. Just gently find out what the deal is. Did she stay with him, or was it a chance encounter? Who is this guy? Where is he from, and what does he do for a living? I want to try to find out how they met and how long they've been doing this. Before I got on the plane back to Charlotte, I called Stephanie Prince. Hi, this is the man of your dreams. Are you free for dinner tonight? Yeah, I'm serious. Carrie's out of town, and I want to take you out for wine and dinner. How do you like the fig tree? Terrific. I'll pick you up at 8 o'clock. And listen, wear something that honors that beautiful body. I want every man in the restaurant tonight to hate me. I laughed and hung up. I then called the fig tree and made a reservation. Stephanie Prince was a tall, very hot, red-headed woman of about 32 who lived 3 blocks from me and Carrie. She sold real estate, knew almost everyone in town, dated a lot, and for some unknown reason, I was attracted to her even though I was a pretty average guy of 41. And 3 or 4 years ago, after we met at a few neighborhood parties, she seriously surprised me. We were having a casual lunch downtown, and she asked, "Do me a favor, Jack?" "Sure, what do you want?" "I've been in one hell of a drought lately. Can you take a break this afternoon for a couple hours and blow my mind?" When I finished lifting my jaw off the table, we talked about it. If I had thought about cheating on my wife with anyone, it would have been Stephanie, and I told her about it. But I was serious about my marriage vows. I know you're happily married, Jack, and I'm not trying to break up the relationship between you and Carrie. I'm not looking for a husband or even a magical romance. I like sex, and I like you. If you want to roll around on the bed with me, whether it's once or several times, just tell me yes. I'd push her away, but not without gratitude for the flattering offer. And I didn't forget that either. Even though I had just seen Carrie cheating on me, I figured I'd do something about it someday. The steelhead trout at Fig Tree was the best I've ever had. But the eating experience wasn't nearly as vivid and memorable as that night in Stephanie Prince's bed. She was energetic, experienced, and tireless. I still don't know why she found me attractive, but she sure as hell liked having fun with me. Dinner was surprisingly serious. We flirted, of course, and Stephanie kept hinting at her plans for me, but we also talked. She's so attractive that it's easy to overlook how considerate and intelligent Stephanie is, but our conversation reminded me of that. It didn't take her long to ask the $64,000 question. In fact, right after we placed our order. "All right, Jack, spill it. I'm glad you called, but what's going on?" I smiled and said, "Can I have a beautiful, elegant dinner with the most beautiful woman I know?" "How about Carrie?" "Yes, she's attractive too, but—" Stephanie, smiling, clapped me on the arm and said, "Very funny. Seriously, what's wrong? You've been keeping your distance ever since I, expressed my interest in you a couple years ago, so why did it happen tonight?" I told her what I saw in Florida and how I feel. "That sucks. I'm sorry, Jack." And I knew that's what she meant. We spent most of dinner talking about marriages, infidelity, and trust. Stephanie had been divorced twice, both times with hot guys who cheated on her before she decided to give up on marriage, so she was very sympathetic. "So what are you going to do about it?" "I'm going to take you home soon, and hopefully you'll invite me over." She smiled at me and gently stroked her foot with mine under the table. After that, I don't know. I think Carrie and I might be able to get over it. I need to know how serious this affair of hers is, and I have a guy who is looking into it. But you know what? I think it's time to stop talking about Carrie. I asked for the check. 5 minutes later, we were holding hands and walking to the car. 20 minutes later, we were lying on her couch, and a little later, we were naked in Stephanie's bedroom. Over the next few days, the smile on my face after my wonderful night with Stephanie would come and go, alternating with gloomy thoughts about Carrie and our future. The people at work must have noticed something, because on Thursday, Dan walked into my office, closed the door behind him, and asked, "What's wrong?" I sighed and told him the story. "What are you planning to do?" "Ask me next week," I said. "It depends on what the detective finds and what Carrie has to say. She'll be back Saturday night, so we'll see." I spent Thursday night with Stephanie, and it was just as hot as the first time. I brought Chinese food, and we ate it in bed as we entertained ourselves. "You know what?" I told her around midnight when we were sleepily watching Letterman. "I'm having a really good time with you." "And this is a surprise to you, asshole," she said, laughing. "No, that's not what I meant," I kissed her. "Sex with you was amazing, Stephanie. I'm serious. You're amazing." But this, I think you turn me on so much that it took me a while to notice how much I enjoy it when we're not doing it. Just talking to you, laughing, watching you drip Kung Pao chicken on those amazing breasts. I can't believe no one grabbed you. Honestly, you deserve more than me. She turned off the TV and pulled me to her for a kiss. "You're sweet, Jack, and I had a great time too. But don't pitch yourself too low. You're a winning lottery ticket. And if Carrie doesn't pull her head out of her ass, women will be lining up to help you feel better." "Including you?" I asked. She looked away. "I'm not sure. I'd largely agree that I wasn't the kind of person who was used to being sedentary. But let's just say, I don't know, and leave it at that." We let it go, realizing that things had gotten serious. Pressed against each other, we kissed some more and fell asleep. And in the morning, Stephanie was light and funny as we showered together, joked at breakfast, and drifted apart. Thomas Giardino, a private principal from Florida, emailed me Friday afternoon. "Here are our preliminary results. Please read and study the attachments and then call my office. I will be in before 6 p.m. I read the report, looked at a half-dozen photos, then called Giardino and talked to him for about 20 minutes. The owner of the Blue Angel was a 34-year-old guy named Roger Dion. He was vice president of sales for a medical supply company and, according to his neighbors, something of a male dog. He almost always had a woman at his house, splashing in the pool, sunbathing on the patio, or even moaning and screaming in his bedroom. And the women never stayed that long. Dion was obviously more interested in the girl variety. The PI photos included several shots of Carrie and Dion lying by the pool together, getting out of a BMW in the driveway, and in one they were together at a table in the back of the house. There was no sex in them, although it was obvious she stayed with him. Several people in Dion's neighborhood recognized Carrie from the photo I provided, but no one could recall seeing her before the current week. So, what can I conclude? First, Dion was probably a casual sex buddy for Carrie, or at least a recent acquisition of hers. They probably met through work, as Carrie was in procurement for a hospital in Charlotte, and she dealt with medical supply companies and their executives all the time. It was hard to say if she might be planning to see him again after this week, but he didn't seem to be a second husband to her. Since Carrie had gone to visit her friend Marjorie about once a year for the past few years, it was likely that old Roger was just my wife's latest affair, not her only one. She was obviously very careful about her outings, as I would have had no idea what she was up to were it not for coincidence, and Uncle Tony's binoculars. I was left with a few questions, but not many. In fact, only the biggest one is, what was I going to do with it? "Baby, I missed you." Carrie kissed me carelessly and hugged me tightly. I kissed her back, then picked up her suitcase and we headed to the airport parking lot, and she grabbed my hand tightly. "I hope you have a bottle of champagne for us." Since Carrie and I traveled occasionally for work, or in her case, to visit her friend Marjorie in Nashville, we had gotten into the habit of celebrating our reunions together with champagne in bed, followed by sex. Tonight was no exception. She took a quick shower while I unloaded her bags and got the champagne, and we spent the next couple hours playing in bed. She seemed as happy and excited as ever. It was different for me. Fun, physically satisfying, but a little empty. When we were done, she snuggled up to me, kissed my neck, said, "Thanks, baby. Love you," and fell asleep a few minutes later. When Carrie walked into the kitchen on Sunday morning in her robe and with a sleepy smile, I had already made coffee and was just serving scrambled eggs and toast. She hugged me, smiling, then accepted a cup of coffee. We ate in silence, Carrie looking at me affectionately, squeezing my hand every now and then, and I just sat and watched. After the second cup, when she started to perk up, Carrie said, "Last night wasn't bad, baby. The best thing after a separation is always coming back and reminding me of what I missed." She smiled affectionately at me. I liked it, but that didn't stop me from saying what I was waiting to say. "Do you think I should have used condoms, Carrie? I mean, since you're sleeping with Roger Dion, do you think we're safe?" A smile froze on her face. "Jack, What did you say?" I waited, allowing the silence to come. Her face turned really pale and she couldn't hold my gaze. "Roger," I said. "The guy from Florida with the boat." "Don't play dumb, honey. It doesn't suit you." "Did you and he use condoms? What about the other guys you had? I'm guessing there were at least 5 or 6. Were you being a good little girl and practicing safe sex?" Carrie cried. "Jack, it's not that. Oh my God, baby, I'm so sorry, I didn't. Oh my God." She covered her face with her hands, crying harder. When she looked at me, her face flooded with tears. I just stared back. "Baby, Jack, I know that. Oh God, I know I did something terrible, but how did you know?" Silence. I wasn't going to answer that question. She looked at me and recoiled at everything she saw, crying even harder now, blowing her nose into her napkin. I got up from the table and said, "I'm going to take a shower." When I returned to the kitchen a half-hour later, shaved and dressed, Carrie was still sitting at the table, but she had washed the dishes and washed her face. "Honey, I know I owe you an explanation. I know I screwed up and I love you so much, I just can't." "I'm sorry, Carrie, not now. I have to be at Stephanie Prince's house. I should be back for lunch so we can talk." "Stephanie Prince?" Her sad face became puzzled. "Yeah, you remember Stephanie, the real estate agent? The tall red-headed girl? Turns out she's really good at the Kama Sutra, like she likes it. You know what I mean?" Carrie looked like pigs had just flown into the kitchen window. "Stephanie, are you, having sex with her?" "Well, when I found out our marriage wasn't what I thought it was, I took her up on her offer. We slept together, yeah. So I'll see you at dinner." I gave what I thought was a pretty good description of myself in Stephanie's bed that day, considering what I had done with Carrie the night before. Then we laid around for a while, eating sandwiches and watching Carolina Parents. Around 6, I got up to take a shower, enjoying the sound from Stephanie's bedroom yelling at the judges to raise the fucking flag every now and then. "Willie?" When I got out, she said, "Do you want to stay for dinner? We could get Chinese food again, or pizza or something." I smiled. "I'm sorry, but I can't tonight. I told Carrie I'd be home for dinner." Stephanie sat up abruptly, giving me a great view of her beautiful breasts. "What the hell? You mean she's back and you're here? Does she know?" "Yeah, she flew home last night. I hit her this morning. I mean, with the story about her boyfriend. And she knows exactly where I am, although I don't think she likes it very much." A smile slowly appeared on Stephanie's face. "You're one tough son of a bitch, aren't you?" She climbed out of bed, pulled on a nightie, and came over to hug me. "So what does that mean? Shall we talk about us?" I looked at her and said, "I honestly don't know. There aren't really many alternatives, and I'll find out after tonight. I could get a divorce, in which case you're number 1 on my to-do list. Or I suppose Carrie and I could agree to an open marriage, given what she's been doing. In which case, see above. Or maybe we'll work it out and go back to where I thought we were all along." Stephanie stroked my shoulders, looking at me thoughtfully. "I like you a lot, Jack. In fact, in bed and out of the house. But I don't think I should be anywhere in your marriage. That's not what I had in mind when we started playing." I kissed her. I realize. First things first, and that goes for Carrie. After that, we'll see. But I certainly wouldn't mind what we do, Steph. Taking her by surprise, I grabbed her ass and lifted her into my arms. Squealing, she wrapped her legs around my waist and, giggling, wrapped her arms around me as I kissed her again. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. When I entered the house, there was music playing softly, Vivaldi or something like that. I looked into the dining room and saw the table set for two, with placemats, pretty napkins, and 2 tall candles. Before I could find Carrie, she came in from the kitchen with fried chicken in a large pan. She wore one of her beautiful dresses, much prettier than usual for a quiet weekend dinner at home. "There you are," she said in a voice full of forced cheer. "Dinner's just been made, so sit down." Moments later, she returned from the kitchen with 2 more dishes, pilaf and spinach. When I sat down, she pulled a bottle of good white wine, which we both like, out of the fridge and poured us each a glass. "This looks delicious, Carrie." We silently greeted each other with the wine, and without speaking, we ate dinner. There was conversation about innocent things and the latest news from the kids, which was my job, but there was too much unspoken and too many subjects to avoid. It was tense, and she clearly liked it a lot less than I did. When she cleared the table and pulled out a beautiful apple pie, it suddenly became clear to me. All day, actually all week, thoughts had been swirling around in my head. Could my marriage be saved? Did I want to save it? Would I ever live as well as a single guy again? Was a future with Stephanie possible? And I realized that, at least at that very moment, everything depended on what Carrie had to say, on what her story would be and how she would tell it. "So, Carrie, are we getting there? What's the first thing? Should we talk about my day with Stephanie or your week with Roger Dion? Which one of us is having better sex? How many other lovers or buddies or whatever you call them have you spread your legs for? Are we going to have an open marriage or no marriage at all? Where would you like to start?" I caught her off guard. She looked at me with a pale face and open mouth. Then she cried softly, "Jack, I'm a terrible person." She spoke softly, tears streaming down her face and onto the table. "I'm selfish, I'm immature, I'm a liar and a cheat." She looked at me. "You know that before you, I never even had a relationship that lasted a year. I was always, I don't know, restless and moody and afraid of closed objects, always dissatisfied with what I had. And when we, met, when we fell in love, and you asked me to marry you, I was so happy, so glad. After all, now I've found the right guy and I'll love him to death forever. No more worrying about what else or who else was out there. Just one man who made me so happy." Now I was the one who was surprised. No evasion, no attempt to downplay what she had done, even though I didn't know it all yet. I wasn't expecting it. And I was. I mean, happy. With you, with us, even with being a stepmom to the kids. I can't tell you how happy I feel when I think about it, but it hasn't stopped me from being a selfish, fucking cheating bitch. And I know I fucked it up, and I don't even know what. At this point, she was completely lost, sobbing convulsively, covering her face with her hands. I waited for her to scream. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to hug her, but more than that, I wanted her to feel what she felt. Alone, guilty, scared. She made me feel like shit, and I wanted her to feel like shit. Not so honorable, I guess, but can you blame me? After a few minutes, she calmed down and took a breath. "Why don't you wash up and we'll sit on the deck to talk?" When we sat down, I said, "Do you have any idea what's going to happen now?" She shook her head, shocked, and I said, "Actually, so do I. But we'll start by you telling me about it. No gruesome details, just who, how much, where, and when. And God damn it, Carrie, if you lie to me even once, even about something small, I'm going to throw your fucking ass out of this house." Okay, no lies. There were 3 of them. A one-night stand 5 years ago when she'd been visiting Margie and they'd gone dancing at a Nashville club. They both picked up guys and took them to Margie's house for the night. Then, for 3 years, nothing. Carrie was shocked at herself, terrified of what she had done. But the fear apparently didn't last long. She did it again, got picked up at a bar while visiting Margie, and spent the night in this guy's hotel room. He was a married businessman from Los Angeles. After that, according to Carrie, She stopped being so afraid. She felt bad and swore to herself she would never do it again, but she wasn't that scared. The third guy was Roger Dion. It was just as I'd imagined. He met her on business in Charlotte. They flirted, and instead of telling him to fuck off, she let him keep working on himself. After a few months, a few private dinners, and a few stolen kisses, she agreed. But she told him she'd never meet him in Charlotte. Eventually, he got the idea that she would visit him in Florida. On her last visit to Margie, she flew to Nashville on Saturday, then got on a plane to Miami and spent 4 days with Roger before heading back to Nashville for the rest of the week. She didn't want to risk flying home directly from Miami, and I somehow found out about it. She swore she had absolutely no intention of ever seeing him again, and I believed her. No part of this story suggested anything romantic, and the sex, at least as Carrie told it, seemed pretty ordinary. Exciting, like a new endeavor, but nothing cosmic. When she finished telling me her story, she leaned back. She looked exhausted. To my surprise, I found that I already had a clear idea of what I wanted. Good. Now it's your turn to listen. When I point at you, you speak. Yes, Jack, or else you shut your damn mouth, okay, Carrie? I pointed at her. She nodded fearfully, then belatedly said, Yes, Jack. I love you and I appreciate our marriage, and I fucking hate what you did. Part of me wants to grab you by the neck and slowly strangle you, watching your face as you die. You killed me and our marriage. You betrayed our love and my faith in you and all the hard work we both did to make our marriage successful. You should be ashamed as hell of yourself. You know that, right? I pointed at her and she immediately said, Yes, Jack. She nodded so vigorously that I almost smiled. Only 3 things can happen, and I've already ruled out one of them, I said. I stood up and paced back and forth, looking at her face. The first, we can get a divorce, nice and simple and clean. We just say hasta la vista, and you can walk out of this house and spread your legs for any asshole that catches your eye. You can be as restless, selfish, and irresponsible as you want. No lies, no one's heart to stomp on. Second, we can decide to have an open marriage. There's no point in honoring our marriage vows. They're so outdated and depressing, right? You have whoever you want, I have who I love, like Stephanie Prince or something, and if we ever feel like it, we can have each other from time to time. Except it doesn't work for me. There would be no real love, no trust, no connection. This marriage will never make me happy, so I won't do it. 3. We stay in the marriage. We decide that the words we said to each other 12 years ago about leaving everyone else behind still mean something to us, even after you've adjusted to them, and after I've spent a few nights in Stephanie's bed. I choose 3. She looked scared, but she said it right away. Didn't I tell you not to say anything? Yes, Jack, you did. I can't help it. I choose 3. That is, if I have a choice. You haven't told me if you're giving me a vote yet, but I'm voting for 3. Good, I said. I was pleased, but I didn't show it. Now shut up again. The only one who has a vote is me, okay? Say yes, Jack. Yes, Jack. There was a faint glimmer of a smile on her face, and I thought maybe it was on mine, too. Number 3 will mean there's a lot to fix, a lot of work to do. You'll get tested to see what STDs that asshole gave you, and I think I need to get tested, too. I was careful with Stephanie, but even if you say you used condoms, I'll be damned if I'm going to risk it. You're going to start seeing a therapist, and we're going to start seeing a marriage counselor. Honestly, I think this is the first one that matters. I don't realize it's our fucking problem. It's your fucking problem. But I'm sure a counselor can help us communicate better. Even if it's just so I know when I should kick your ass before you do anything else. Even 1/8 as stupid. Then cross your legs together. Got it? I pointed at her and she said, Yes, Jack. There were tears on her face, but she started to smile. You remind yourself more often that you only flirt with the one guy you kiss or touch, the one guy you have ever had, and that's what I'm all about. And if you don't like that, if you think it's too limiting, then we'll go back to number 1. I looked at her and the smile disappeared. Yes, Jack, yes, I get it, yes, absolutely. Good. I think there may be a few more as we move forward. Things I'll think about later or what a marriage counselor might suggest. But for now, there are 2 more. First, Nashville is over. You're not going there again? Carrie's head twitched and she opened her mouth but then closed it again. Then she nodded and said, "Yes, Jack. Your little friend Margie was right in the heart of it when you messed up our marriage, and that will stop. If you want to see her, you can invite her here. And after I rip her chocolate eye, I might even let her stay in the guest room for a night or two. Got it?" "Yes, Jack." She said it before I even looked at her. "And I'm really sorry about that. You're absolutely right about Margie and all of this. Now, last one. I keep seeing Stephanie. Not all the time, but occasionally, when I feel like it. Have lunch, sleep with her whenever. Until I decide I've had enough, or you've had enough. Say it." I pointed at her. "Yes, Jack." Her face was pale, and the tears had returned to her eyes. "You don't feel so good, do you? Thinking about me with her? That gorgeous body, those long legs wrapped around me? Are we sleeping or just kissing? Maybe just lying around and whispering sweet nothings to each other?" "No, Jack, it doesn't feel good. It hurts a lot. And I know why you say things like that, and you're right. I say, yes, Jack." She was crying a little bit, but she looked me in the eye. "And I'm so sorry for being a selfish bitch and for hurting you so much." She broke into sobs again, and this time I went over and hugged her, still angry but loving warmth and gentleness to me. She held me tight, crying, and finally she said, "You have not yet told me your vote, but mine is still in favor of 3, with all your conditions." "Okay, number 3. Carrie was asleep next to me, snoring softly. I was still awake, brooding, but feeling good. I was surprisingly optimistic about my marriage. Perhaps part of it was just a certain degree of maturity. At 41, my response to her infidelity was more than just the blind rage I might have felt at 25. As I told you in the beginning, I know that Carrie loves me. She's confused, but she loves me. So if we can do something about the confused part, maybe we will. I didn't think I'd be dating Stephanie for very long. The sex was great and I liked her a lot, but I couldn't see how it would do anything but interfere with trying to repair my marriage to Carrie. Still, just the possibility seemed like a good lever in my pocket, and I really enjoyed licking the gung-pao chicken off her breasts.